Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask a Writer with the fabulous Mr. Xaque Gruber. How are you today?
Well,
Zach.
hello, everyone. I'm very well, and thank you, Susan, for inviting me to do this. I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. I'm just going to let everybody know that they have a raise hand button and they can go in there and they can click a question for us or just the chat as well, and we will get to them throughout the program. But I'd love to sort of give a little background to the people that are here today. You've had a very interesting and varied life. I believe at one time you were a teacher. We can see some paintings behind you, and you're a writer and producer. There you go. That's one of your originals. So can you tell us how teaching maybe affected your writing and how it segued into writing?
Well, I love teaching. I was a teacher full-time in Massachusetts in the public schools there. I was basically kindergarten through fifth grade art teacher. And in 1999, I was Massachusetts Art Teacher of the Year, which was a huge honor. I love, to this day, I'm teaching, not exactly right now because of COVID, but in normal world, I'm teaching everything from preschool, middle school, elderly, Alzheimer's, normal, happy adults, you name it, teenagers, college students. I'm teaching all different things, writing and art. I sort of have two people living inside of me, a writer and an artist. And so I need to sort of nurture and take care of both of those things. But teaching was my full-time job and focus. And what happened was I was teaching all of these young children who every day would go home and watch television and would come in the next day and tell me all about what they saw on television. And I thought, I should be working in television because then my classroom could be the whole world rather than just these 30 kids.
That's
And
a great idea.
yeah, so I segued from teaching in Massachusetts. I went back to college. I went to Boston University. This was 1999, 2000, to study television production. And I received my master's in television production from Boston University. And then from there, I decided to just focus on writing for television as my career. Originally, I was thinking about doing it in Boston or New York, but I ended up driving to Los Angeles, and my whole life changed after that.
So that's a great segue into some of the questions that came in prior. We asked people if they wanted to send questions early. So we have a couple of first-time writers, and one of the questions was, where do you begin? I know you could just say wake up and write, right? But where do you begin to get to the place where you can actually say, "Hey, I'm a writer"?
It's a process. I mean,
Okay.
we can all write, okay? So, but to actually write well, to write beautifully, to write stories or scripts, poems, whatever it is that your artistry is, takes a lot of reading. You need to read in order to become a very good writer. That you also need to know kind of what your voice is. Is your voice writing romantic comedy? Is your voice writing horror? We all kind of gravitate to something that's very innate in us. For me, it's comedy, and kind of unusual comedy. It's not the kind of comedies that we're seeing in the movies these days, which are kind of either frat boy comedies or cynical comedies or potty humor or mean humor. My humor is totally different than all that. It's sort of irreverent and cerebral and warm-hearted. So I grew up watching a lot of television and movies. Okay, that will help you in your writing as much as reading books. Absorb it all. As you can see, this bookshelf behind me, this is my whole life of
Beautiful.
favorite books. So I started reading at the age of 2. I was a really early reader. And I started writing probably at 3 or 4. And drawing came early also in those years. So writing and drawing, I was always doing all the time and making up stories. And by kindergarten, my father bought me this book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, which is, to this day, my all-time favorite book. I think I actually read it annually. I still read this, and it's incredible. It's such inventive writing. Lewis Carroll wrote Through the Looking Glass, which was the sequel, and I read these books. I was a kindergartner or first grader, and these are complicated books, actually. These are not super easy to read because he was dealing with nonsense and poetry, and he wasn't telling a story in a linear way. It was very episodic and bizarre. But I just was a sponge, as a child, and I developed an early love for reading, which led into an early love for writing. I'm a huge fan of nursery rhymes. I'm a huge fan of Where the Wild Things Are. Oh my gosh, Dr. Seuss. I can't get enough of Dr. Seuss. The Little Prince. These are all essential books in my growing up that made me who I am.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. And what an eclectic mix, right?
Well, and those are books that are known as children's books, but they're actually quite sophisticated. I would love for any adult to adventure into those books. You will not be bored.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity. We get to do a poll. So why don't we assess with our audience, and we're going to ask them. I'm going to do it while I type. I'm going to ask you, are you a writer? And you can only do yes or no on these polls. And what's this going to do is let me know what the audience is. Are you just people that are interested in the entertainment business? Maybe thinking about writing would be a no, but if you are a writer. And oh gosh, thanks everyone. I don't know if you can see the poll, but we're getting up to 67% say, 71% say yes. Let's just, and okay, 3/4 of you are writers, so yay. So that's what we'll do. And thank you so much for those that are not, because learning in any discipline can only help other facets of your life. So what I'd love to do is ask you, when you started, when you started, was it the award show for E! And Scream and Billboard, or was it more the reunions like Dynasty and Dallas? Which one was your first big break into?
So I went to Hollywood hoping, what you're hoping for isn't always what ends up in your lap, but you've got to have a goal. So my goal was to write for primetime scripted television. I went out there to do that, or for children's television, like either or I'd be really thrilled with. I ended up kind of going into another area, which wasn't my necessarily plan, but it worked out. I mean, it was so interesting to me how life just sort of will whoosh you like a surfer on a wave in a certain way, and you go with it. I mean, don't fight it. Go with it, because it can lead you somewhere great. So I was hired by Henry Winkler, who I love, to be his assistant. This was 2003. Early 2003, Michael Levitt and Henry Winkler were the executive producers of Hollywood Squares, the game show, which was in its final years. And I was hired to be their assistant in their production office. Well, I told them right from the get-go, right from my interview, that I was a writer and I came to LA to be a writer. But of course, you have to pay your dues. So I took on this assistant job, which I loved them. And I loved Hollywood Squares. And it was a really exciting learning experience for me. Also, Hollywood Squares, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's like a giant tic-tac-toe board. And in each square was a famous celebrity who would answer trivia questions, and you had to agree or disagree with them. I even ended up becoming a contestant on the show. I was the very final contestant ever on Hollywood Squares. They had staff week, and they picked my name randomly, and I won $5,000 for cystic fibrosis, which my cousin has. And it was really funny. We couldn't keep the money because we worked on the show. But going back to working for Michael Levitt, he is known as a producer of television specials and award shows and all sorts of unscripted programming. So I stayed with him for many years at Michael Levitt Productions, where we produced the Dynasty Reunion, which was my first writing credit. I remember it was one of my happiest memories. Henry Winkler and Michael Levitt called me at Christmas time and offered me this job to write the Dynasty Reunion special. That was 2005. They called me, and the show was taped in early 2006 in the actual mansion that Dynasty took place in, called the Filoli Mansion near San Francisco. Heaven Can Wait, the movie, was also in that mansion. Little trivia. So it was a thrill because as a result of writing the Dynasty Reunion for CBS, I ended up becoming a member of the Television Academy, voting on the Emmys. I became a member of the Writers Guild.
Now there's two Emmys. There's two Emmys. So was it daytime or prime time? Well, you went right to the top.
Yes, and then one show led to another because we were constantly doing specials and award shows. Now, I never in my dreams thought I want to be an award show writer, but it's so cool because you're backstage with all of the nominees who are about to go on stage to present an award, and you're writing what they're about to say, and you're backstage. I was backstage with everyone from, oh my gosh, Jessica Alba, Ben Affleck. Who was the one on Baywatch, the blonde? Pamela Anderson. With the cast of Twilight, the cast of
Diana Ross.
Everybody. Oh my gosh. Britney Spears, Jim Carrey, The Rock, Queen Latifah, every single person you could think of.
Liza Minnelli on the Love Boat show.
Yeah, I worked with Liza Minnelli on the TV Land Awards.
Because I remember the stories through the year. They're
oh my gosh, literally everybody. Tom Cruise. Yeah.
We're going to start our next poll, and again, these are yes or no questions. So I'm going to say, did you? Oops, I have to start new. Let's go, and I have to type. Here we go. Did you start in one direction and end up in another?
Yeah.
And it would be similar to what Zach was just talking about.
Yes. So I think that's common. I think that people do start in one direction and end up in another over many years. I love
this audience. Zach, can you see the numbers?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. So the numbers are almost identical to the last poll. So three quarters say yes, and they ended up in a different direction, and then a quarter said no. So it's interesting. I wish I could ask different kinds of polls to assess which sectors, but I love that you just went with it, and I love the analogy of the surfing with the wave. Mm-hmm. So at one point, did it switch? Because we'll end up going in the direction of I'm going to show a little video we created for you after you get to answer this question. I'd love to know, what was that turning point for you when you switched from those shows to now your own shows? You've got a short in one festival about words. You have another short that was a comedy with elderly ladies called The Pistol, and you've got a feature-length film that you wrote that you're in editing on. So what was that turning point in the difference of writing?
Okay, so all through the years that I was writing for television with Michael Levitt, I was writing my own material that I was never filming, but they were short film scripts. So all through the 2000s and the 2010s, I was writing these short film scripts, like 20 pages long, very eclectic, irreverent, funny stories that were kind of bizarre and outrageous. But I wanted to write these as samples because I had a literary manager, who was sending my work out to all the different, production companies, studios, you name it. And I wanted to create some writing that would stand out from the crowd, rather than writing the same old thing that everyone else was writing or the same old spec script. I wanted to have something that was really unusual and original. And so, borrowing from all those children's books I mentioned, I would come up with these wild ideas and write them into short film scripts, Well, I never filmed those scripts. They were simply writing samples, but I loved them, and they were winning competitions. One won the Slam Dance writing competition award, so and other ones. So I ended up moving to Florida. Vero Beach is where I live now, if anyone knows where that is. It's on the Atlantic Ocean, kind of halfway down the state. It's a very pretty little town. Anyway, I never thought I'd be a Floridian. I mean, look at how I'm dressed. Does this look like Florida? No. So I had to go to Florida because my father was dying with Alzheimer's disease, and my mother could not handle it alone. So here I am working full-time in Hollywood, California, and my mother calls me and says, "You have to get to Florida and help me with your father. It's killing me." And it was almost Christmas. This is 2015. And I just thought, okay, I'm selling my car. I'm getting rid of my place. I'm leaving my job. My parents need me. My parents and my family mean so much to me. They've done so much for me, like everything, that I need to be there for them. You know, they need me more than Hollywood. So I came to Vero Beach, and I ended up loving it here. Like it turned out to be a lovely place where I felt fresh, full of new creative energy, and I felt healthier. So I decided, as my father was kind of getting into a groove, Alzheimer's, you decline and then you get to kind of a plateau, that I started to have a little bit more time for me. And I thought, I want to take one of these short film scripts that were sitting on my shelf and shoot it locally with local actors. I don't have to spend very much money. And so I flew my best friend in LA, Matthias Fain, who's a cinematographer. And I said, get here. I'll write it. You shoot it. We'll cast it. We'll get local crew. We're going to make a short film. It's going to be less than 10 minutes long. See if I can get it into festivals. See what we can do with it. I have no clue. And it ended up, this little 10-minute short film, I think it was actually 9 minutes, ended up going to the Cannes Film Festival in France, which way exceeded what I thought it would do. So from there, one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming known as a film writer. And now that's my focus, film writing.
So to recap, and I'm so sorry about your dad, and what a beautiful thing to
He did pass away in 2018.
But
I did everything I could, honestly. Like, I went above and beyond as a son in every way I could.
You're a good son. So, and it was lovely that you went and helped out, and you found a new place of adventure out on the ocean. So to recap some of the things that I'd like to extract from your experiences for the people in the audience, you're also saying that uprooting from one living situation to another, right, also could reignite your need and want to go back to writing.
Yes.
Right? Because you had to take yourself away from it for a while, and now you're in a new environment. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I'm hearing is that, I love the idea about your unique voice, because that will be your signature, and that will be, what will help you move forward in the world, versus sending a spec script, which is writing your own version of a show that's already on.
Right.
What I'm hearing is that you wrote, then you revisited it years later, and then you turned it into something that you could film, and you went and just did it, and then you moved forward to, get it out there in the world, and some accolades actually helped you to the next level. So therefore, you became a vetted writer. Then you were a produced writer, right? Vetted, award-winning, and then produced. So those are actually sort of, steps newcomers can take along the way to advance their career. So we created, I didn't introduce myself, and that's fine. They should be able to find us on the...
Susan Johnston, everybody.
Hi, I'm Susan Johnston. So I'm founder director of New Media Film Festival. And when Xaque Gruber was writing for the Huffington Post, he would come in and he would interview some celebrities. So I wanted to make a little... So I wanted to get a video for you together. I'm trying to see where that is. And it should be... Here we go. So it's just a very, very short video. It'll show you Xaque Gruber in action, both as the writer and the person, because when you are interviewing on stage live, you have to be quick on your feet. So here you go. We'll take a second.
I have no idea what this video is going to be.
I know you don't. So, okay, everybody, enjoy.
Okay.
I'm going to hit play. And it's loading. And I think I have to hit play again.
So, you know, I am friends with many actors, and they do have these breakdowns, and they do have a lot of, you know, the sort of nervousness of, am I going to get this part, or am I going to continue to be able to, you know, feed myself in this profession? Do you have those moments?
Oh yes.
Are those real?
For respected. More fidelity.
How do you keep yourself buoyant and, you know, persevering?
I think by hanging out with a lot of artists, you know, a lot of actors, writers, directors, producers, painters, musicians.
So there you have it.
Wow.
That was you, an Oscar nominee, Golden Globe winner, Independent Spirit Award winner, Sally Kirkland, and you got her to just answer truth.
Can I talk for a second about Sally Kirkland?
Absolutely, you can talk about Sally Kirkland.
So growing up, she was one of my favorite actresses because of the movie Anna, which came out in 1987, and she was nominated for Best Actress in 1988. It was the first independent film I'd ever seen, and it blew me away. And I remember watching the Oscars when her name was up there with the 4 other Best Actress nominees, and I was rooting for her. And I thought, oh, I hope Sally Kirkland wins. Well, years after that, she kind of faded into a little bit of obscurity. She was in a few big high-profile films and TV shows, but less and less as the years went on. So when I moved to Hollywood in 2002, I thought, I have to meet Sally Kirkland. She made such an impression on me. I wonder how I will ever get a chance to meet her. And then I find by chance that she's having an art gallery showing of her paintings. And I was so excited. I didn't even know she painted. And I'm an artist, by the way. So I go to her art gallery opening. It was Halloween, which is her birthday, 2002. She didn't know me at all. I'm in starstruck kind of excitement looking at her. She's about 5 feet away, and she turns to me and she goes, "Young man, what do you think of my paintings?" And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, well, your choices of colors so bold, and your compositions are so interesting." And she said, "You're an artist. You're speaking like an artist." I said, "Yes, I am an artist." And she said, "You're a Virgo." And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Are you my new assistant?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Did God just send you into Sally's life?" And I said, "I think God just sent us both together, Sally." And she said, "Ooh, you start right now." So I ended up becoming Sally Kirkland's assistant in that moment. And she didn't even know my name. She just hired me. I didn't even know what I was being paid. I had no idea. And the experience was completely crazy, but wonderful. Well, that inspired me one evening in 14, years later, at a birthday party in Beverly Hills, just to tell this story to the group at the birthday party, just the story I just told you about meeting Sally Kirkland. And the room was laughing. And this British woman comes up to me and she said, "That is the funniest story I've ever heard, and I want that for my next movie." And I said, "Well, who are you?" And she said, "My name is Julia, and I'm a British film producer. Here's my card. I've produced," and she listed off her films, big British dramas. And she said, "I know yours is just a little comedy, but I want it. I think it'll be like my little Fabergé egg. So send me the script, please." And I said, "Send you the script? I just told a story at a birthday party. There's no script." And she said, "Well, write it." So I went, okay. So I went home and I wrote "fade in," the blah, 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 and wrote the entire script, basically just as I told it. It took me about 3 months to write the first draft, which is pretty fast. And then I emailed it to her, and she read it and loved it. And last year, well, actually 2019, the end of 2019, we filmed it. It was my first feature film that I wrote and directed. And it's called Sallywood, like Sally Kirkland in Hollywood, you know. And Sally Kirkland plays herself. And we have a young actor named Tyler Steelman playing me. and we have a amazing all-star cast, a great cast of up-and-comers and 4 Oscar nominees. And I mean, honestly, Susan, I just sort of manifested this. I mean, I just, I feel like this wasn't as a result of an agent or a manager helping me. Agents and managers have not helped me ever. Let me just start with that. This wasn't as a result. This wasn't as a result of my pitching it, you know, or banging down doors and frustrations. It just happened so organically. So it's ultra low budget. You know, this is not like Avatar or something. This is a very low budget, darling, charming indie comedy. Hoping, planning on premiering it this year. We're in editing still. COVID slowed us down a lot last year with editing. Because I'm in Florida, my editor is in Studio City, Los Angeles, and my producer's in England, and we're all trapped in our various areas, unable to travel. So everything's been virtual. Anyway, it's coming together. I'm so proud of it. But Sally Kirkland has played a very big and wonderful role in my life. And I can't wait for the world to see this.
We chose that interview because you've interviewed many celebrities through the years at our festival. I know you won't be now, but we're so appreciative when you did. I'd like to sort of recap some of the things that you said. You were telling a story at a dinner party, and everybody laughed. It's almost the same as like a script reading, right? Writers go to hear a script reading live to see where the laughs are, or the dead spaces, and then someone told you to write. They valued you. They validated you, and they valued you. Now, you could have froze. You could have procrastinated.
And I could have not followed up, like some people.
Correct. You could. You rode that surfboard.
Yeah.
You know, so it sounds like your trajectory through life, regardless of what's going on, you keep getting up and you keep moving forward in the direction of art and story, right? You just didn't give up. You took time off during a very important time of your life, but sometimes you need to take away, right? Like from that work to be able to go back to it with some, new vigor and vision. I'd love to see. Someone says they love you. Nancy Weisman says she loves your stories, Zack.
Oh, I love Nancy. Oh, hi, Nancy.
Hi. So no one has raised their hands for questions. So what I'm going to do is, if it's okay with you, let's do a few minutes of questions from the audience that were sent in prior.
Sure.
What is your favorite and least favorite part of writing?
I don't. Okay, my favorite part of writing, actually, I'm in this right now, is when you're in the flow. Okay, when you are writing and you all of a sudden look at the clock and it's 3 a.m. and you went, what? I've been writing for 7 hours and I didn't even eat dinner, because you're just so in it. This happens to me with painting too. You get so in it that nothing around you even exists. It's a great feeling, by the way. Talk about an escape from the world. So I'm writing right now a fiction screenplay, pure fiction. I've never actually written pure fiction before. It's always had elements of truth of my life or someone's life. And I was up till way past midnight this morning, writing in my bed, really happy. I'm just seeing it all and the characters and their voices. And so that's my favorite part of writing, when you're really in the flow. My least favorite part of writing, I'd probably have to say it's when you don't have enough time to write and you're dying to get to it. That can be super, super frustrating. And you've got to carve out, really, to get somewhere, you've really got to carve out 3 hours a day for writing. Less than 3 hours is, I understand certain days you can't get to it for 3 hours, but if you can get 3 hours in, that's everything. I mean, any successful writer will tell you that the 3 hour rule is You got to build that in. I actually, when I'm done with this with you, Susan, I'm going to go and write probably for 3 hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad that you were mentioning that, because the next question was, what comes first for you, the plot or the characters, and why?
They kind of go hand in hand for me. You have to know your lead character's voice. That's super important. But in the stories I've written, I've known the essential plot coming into it with the character. And like when I wrote The Pistol, which was my little short that went to the Cannes Film Festival, I was reading a newspaper. This is how this script even happened. I was reading a newspaper, and there was a tiny little article, this big, a paragraph, not even, about an old woman who a burglar broke into her house, a young burglar, and she took out her gun, her pistol, and she pointed it at the boy and said, "Sit down in that chair, pick up the phone, call the police, and they're going to come over and they're going to arrest you. So call the police on yourself." And the kid did it. And the police came and arrested him, and then she went back to bed. And I thought, what kind of woman is she? They didn't have any information beyond that. And I thought, this is incredible. This elderly woman just picked up a gun, had the kid call the cops, and they came and arrested him. That's very bold and brave. I mean, she just took action and got it done. So I decided I wanted to flesh that out into a script, and I wanted it to be a comedy, because I actually really love how comedies can teach us things, but they disarm us in a way because we laugh. And so we're looser. We're not, in a drama, it's super tense and you're crying or you're on the edge of your seat. And you can be crying on the edge of your seat in a comedy too, I guess. But comedy, it seeps into you in a certain way, and you end up feeling something very deeply or learning something, but you're laughing as you're doing it. And that to me is beautiful. So I wanted to create this very unusual comedy with this elderly woman. And so the news, I'm like a sponge. So, and I think it's good for writers to be like a sponge. Borrow from the news, borrow from your life, or borrow from nature, or there's so many things around us that can inspire you to tell a story. And so to go back to your question, is it the character or the plot? For me,
they go first. Yeah, what comes first for you, the plot or the characters?
Yeah, but I do advise all writers to know their lead character and to develop that lead character. That's super important.
It's funny how you know the question before it comes, because the next question is, how do you develop it? And this would be for the people that, they've written, but they just, they're here to just make sure that they can maybe get some tips on how do you develop your plot and characters.
Mm-hmm. Your lead character should have flaws. Your lead character should be very real, and you really need to know them through and through. I mean, if you're writing fiction, it's very different than writing nonfiction. Like, for example, when I was writing Sallywood, I was writing Sally Kirkland. I mean, I know how she talks and how she behaves, how she reacts, her emotional volatility, all that. So it was fun and, in a way, easier because I was working from a real life person who I knew. If you're developing a character that's a historical character like Harriet Tubman or someone from long ago, that involves a lot of research. And research for me is super fun. I love diving into research. Oh my God, I'm such a history buff. So, but if you're writing fiction, that's a whole other animal. And I'm writing, like I said, I'm writing a fiction story right now. And my central character is an old witch, like a Grimm's fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel old witch. And I am having a lot of fun. Oh, I love writing older women. Older women to me are the best thing ever. So every script I have is about a woman well over 50, okay? And they've got so many stories. They're so funny. They're so interesting. They don't care. They're so raw. They've married and divorced and married and divorced and So it's just the best. I would rather write a 68-year-old woman any day over a 22-year-old woman any day. Okay.
Well, I'd like you to win an award just for that, because you're right. A life well lived has a dearth of layers, right?
Oh yeah.
And peeling those layers like an onion, can help you develop those plots and characters. It was so funny when you mentioned the witch in Grimm's fairy tale. I saw things like you scouring the woods to find the right home or rock or look or feel. And then in history, maybe taking that boat ride down the river that person you're discovering, so you can, I know it sounds silly, but water is different in different parts of the country, salty or non, or air is humid or not. So what are some of the fun things that you've done in delving deeper into, one of your characters?
Okay, well, my first writing professional experience, I guess you could say, was a book that was published in 2002 called A Big Adventure in the Smallest State. And it's a history of Rhode Island for all ages. I was living in Providence, Rhode Island for 5 years and completely fell in love with Rhode Island. I couldn't believe that 30 towns could make a state. And that Rhode Island being so small, I mean, I went on a bike marathon and I went from side to side in a day. That it has its own cuisines, it has its own accents, it has its own, unique culture and history and landscapes and you name it. It's fascinating to me. So being a teacher at that time, I wanted to teach my students about the history of a state. And I was inspired to write about Rhode Island because I had just gone on a family vacation to Alaska, to the Alaskan wilderness, which blew my mind. It was so beautiful and vast, so much wilderness. And then I came back and I thought, our country is amazing. I mean, we have deserts, glaciers, oceans, mountains, volcanoes, tropics. It's kind of like you name it. We have it in the United States of America. So I became very inspired by that and excited by that. And there was so much of the country I still had yet to see. I've seen most of the states now, but there's still some that I need to get to. But so I wrote this Rhode Island book, and I spent so many days, weeks, months, years living in the libraries in Providence, reading about the great historical characters that made Rhode Island, Rhode Island. And I wrote this book, and I drove to those places where Roger Williams, who founded the state, where he went on his canoe, Anne Hutchinson, Block Island, all these different places, and walked in their footsteps to understand it all. I was born on a farm in Ohio, so I'm not a New Englander by blood, but I adopted New England as my home. Like, I love New England so much. I know I'm living in Florida, which is very different from New England. But in the summer and the fall, I like being in Maine, actually. And my parents long ago bought a home in Maine on Sebago Lake, and I love going up there. Anyone who's my Facebook friend will see all my photos of Maine. But, and Susan, you've been to my home up there too. It's something about the four seasons and the beauty of it all and the food. Oh, I just love it. So to answer your question, yes, I love diving into doing that research, whatever it be. And right now it's about these old witches. And honestly, walking through those old forests in Maine, I'm feeling these characters. So that's where I got this inspiration to write this next film, which I want to film entirely in Maine, actually.
It sounds exciting. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Is there anywhere that people can go to maybe buy the book on the Ocean State? Or
yes, it's available on Amazon. It's out there. A Big Adventure in the Smallest State. I illustrated it. I wrote it.
Write it in the chat. So go ahead.
It's a chapter book. Do I must have it on my shelf here somewhere. It's somewhere on my bookshelf. But
what did you say
yeah,
it was? The biggest adventure in the ocean state?
The Big Adventure in the Smallest State. A history of Rhode Island for all ages. And it's a fantasy adventure. And it takes place where this little girl named Rhoda from Rhode Island, she goes on a giant quahog shell, which is the largest clam shell, and it flies and it takes her in a time-traveling journey through the whole history of the state. It's for about 3rd grade and up.
And I'm sorry, I was looking away. I was typing the pistol ashore. Where could they possibly see that?
At the moment, it's not available to see except at film festivals. When will it be at the next film festival? I don't know off the top of my head. But my
we could distribute it for you if you want. We could distribute it for you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Let's talk. My second short film is just called The, and it's about the word the. And if she were a person, being the most used word that we have, and nobody really thinks about how upset would she feel? So of course I wrote her as an elderly woman because I love elderly women, and she's frustrated. The world is changing, all these new words in the dictionary. She doesn't relate. And I love these multi-generational stories. Sallywood is a multi-generational story. I'm always writing this. I'm so fascinated with how different, oh my God, the older generation, the current, let's say 60, 70, 80, 90 somethings and up are so different from the teenagers and 20 somethings of today. Completely different how they were schooled, technology, you name it. So, it's fascinating to me. And I think that we're at the biggest divide right now between the older and younger generations than ever before because of technology. So, for example, I had to sign my mother up to get her COVID vaccine shot because she could have never figured it out on her own. She doesn't do apps, okay? She doesn't do the internet. She's like resistant to all of that. So how the heck is she supposed to get her vaccine shot? She's never going to get it left to her own devices. So thank God for me, because I signed her up and got it. Anyway, what was the question?
No, you actually answered the question. So thank you very much. The next one is, what to you are the most important elements of good writing?
Oh, well, good writing, like good music or good food, is so hard to define. I mean, it's, it when you read it because it flows and it has a magic to it and a voice to it and a spark to it. And, it takes a lot of work to get there. A lot of beginning writers, well, first of all, if you're a beginning writer, you need to consult with somebody who knows their stuff to read your writing and give you notes. You need to be able to be good at receiving notes on your writing instead of be defensive and tell the person, I know what I'm doing. No. Listen to the notes. You will get better. It takes years of crafting it and doing it and rewriting. It's not going to be perfect the first time around. It's like sculpting with clay. You've got to really like finesse it and take time. And so good writing, it's a special art. It's a special craft. It takes a lot of practice.
So someone had asked, what is the difference between a writer and an author?
For me, an author is a term that applies to book writing. You've authored a book. All authors are writers, of course, but not all writers are authors. If that makes sense.
Not all writers are authors. So different. So it's like long format plays. Someone might be better at a haiku or a Broadway production or a novel.
Oh,
or
sure.
script.
I mean,
Or-
there's so many outlets for writing. I'm really fascinated with the world of playwriting. I've written just a couple one-act plays, and I'm really thrilled with doing it. I'd love to do more. And yeah, I urge people to explore it all, because the world of poetry writing, playwriting, script writing, book writing, short stories, whatever your game is, lyrics, try it, do it.
I mean, even digital comics. We have a digital comic category, and
Right.
those illustrations need writing. So
That's right.
earlier you had said everybody should do 3 hours a day, and I felt a little overwhelmed, but I'm not a writer. So I was like, okay, maybe that's why. But when you put it into perspective, that 3 hours doesn't have to be a specific project, right? Maybe you can start in this project, and if you get stuck, you go, oh, I want to write a poem, or I want to maybe, just go in a different direction. Maybe you want to write quotes of,
I'm writing multiple things at once, often, and I'm reading multiple books at once, often.
That's great, but that's great information.
So
it doesn't have to be
stack, and I pick it up, and I'm reading, and then I put it down. And I remember David Sedaris. Do you know who that is? He said, "I don't even want to date someone unless I see their book library." I don't want to date someone unless I know they read books, and I want to know what those books are. And I was laughing. I found that really funny. But I get it, actually.
That's funny. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that people know. I would love it if you hit the hand button and put your question in there. But if not, you'll see me every once in a while look at the chat section. But we still have some more. We still have some more questions. Someone said, "Is there any other way to start a writing career other than producing it yourself or competitions?" So that's a tough one.
Yeah, no, I think that there is no limit to ways you can start a writing career. I actually, when I wasn't writing for television, because I love writing and I love people, I thought, I want to write for magazines. I want to interview actors and musicians and get into that world and that headspace. And that turned into a whole side career for me, where I started writing for a magazine called Venice Magazine, very popular in Los Angeles. And then they kind of moved me up to be theater editor, where I was seeing every musical and show that was coming to LA for free. It was a blast. Going backstage, interviewing the lead actors in those shows. And then that turned into a gig with the Huffington Post. This is all while I'm doing my full-time job in LA. And those experiences, writing as a journalist for online or magazines or newspapers, tons of interesting doors open for you when you're doing that. You are meeting the world, and you have opportunities to do what you want with who you want. Like, you have such access. If you're writing as a press person for a newspaper or magazine of note, and you go to, say, Sundance Film Festival, they give you a press pass, you apply for it, they give it to you, and then suddenly you are in all these very VIP areas. I mean, it's mind-blowing. I went one year just as a guy, okay? And I'm out in the cold, and I'm like, ooh, I hope I can get in to see that movie. Oh, you know what, let's just get hot chocolate. And then the next year I went as a Huffington Post reporter, and I was having wine with the Mondavi family, and then I was backstage with Guns N' Roses and Joan Jett and Aaron Sorkin and all these people at private parties, because they want the press there to talk to them, to get quotes, etc. So I didn't realize how thrilling and how much access I would have being a reporter. That wasn't really why I did it. I just love people, and I love writing about people. So there's so many ways you can go with trying to develop a writing career. It's not just about competitions, although that can help. And if it does, great. I've actually won competitions in my life. And sad to say, none of my competitions that I won really led to anything. I mean, I won the competition and I was happy about it, but it's like nothing magical happened after that. So, but that's okay.
But do you
I
think
won
like,
it.
I know, but do you think like the resume, it built up? Like, you know.
Yeah, the award, I put the awards on my resume.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So you know, there's that.
Well, because someone that doesn't know you, that gets your script and goes to imdb.com to see, even if you're listed, right? So everyone here should at least have an IMDb profile. You're writing your script. But I do feel that if you've won some awards, and of course, the higher level of that competition, right? Cannes, Sundance, I'd love to think that New Media Film Festival is in at least the top 15, top 10. There's Toronto International Film Festival. You know, if you had one that has some awards, has been vetted or produced, you're probably going to give them a little more cachet than the person who hasn't, I would think. But,
maybe.
What I love about what you said is that there are so many ways to keep moving forward, right? So many ways to write, so many ways to get it done. Someone had asked, if you have writer's block, what do you do?
Well, fortunately, I have never had writer's block. I have just the opposite problem, which is I'm bursting with ideas that there's not enough hours in a day to tackle them all. But here's what I do when I'm feeling just kind of, I wouldn't call it writer's block, but it's like this kind of heavy feeling. Sometimes you feel like stress, whatever, exhaustion. I take a walk. I know it sounds so simple, but I go outside and I either ride my bicycle, I take a walk, I get out of my four walls and I go out. Maybe in Florida it's lovely because I have a pool. I can swim. Swimming is amazing, guys. So if you have access to a pool, that's really helpful. But yeah, I go outside, get that fresh air, and it can actually do something to you. You know, walk through the woods, walk through a garden, and you'll just kind of, hopefully the juices will start flowing and that block will unblock in some way.
But I love the fact that it's something, very simple, walking.
Yeah. I live near a beach, which is heavenly. Oh my gosh. But, you don't have to live near a beach. I mean, or maybe you live near a lake that you can walk along, even in winter, because I grew up in the North. Winter, I love winter. I know it's cold and freezing and icy and snowy and all that, but I love all that. So bundling up and walking outside in the cold and you see your breath and you're like, oh, I'm alive. And then you go inside and you have your hot chocolate and then, it's a great feeling, I have to say.
That's wonderful. Someone else had asked, have you or would you consider writing under a pseudonym?
Oh my gosh, I never have. But in college, I used to write for the college newspaper. I was the music record reviewer. And I was so nervous that my college classmates would disagree with something that I was reviewing. That they would be mean to me or attack me. So I thought, I should write under a pseudonym, because if I write a negative review about an album they love, they'll never, they'll attack me or they won't speak to me or God knows what. And I decided to just use my real name. And what they did when they disagreed with me was they just approached me very respectfully and say, I didn't agree with that. I actually really like that album. And I go, oh, okay. And it was actually really, really cool, because I go back and listen to that album. I think about them differently. So yeah, I think it's always good to use your real name rather than a pseudonym, if you can. I mean, obviously, if you're in some sort of ghostwriter situation or something, you have to use a pseudonym. But no, use your real name.
Excellent. So I know that you had said after Sallywood, you're working on the witch film. So that's great. Do you have, let's kind of do.
And I'm working on another film too.
Oh, good.
That's called MIA, and it's a drama about a Vietnam War widow, and I'm the co-writer. It's my co-writer is Raul Mangialardi, and we just optioned it with Imprint Entertainment. It's very exciting.
Congratulations! That wasn't formerly the Big Blue.
Yes, you read that.
Gosh, I read that script.
And
I loved
it's
it.
a very powerful true life drama about the Vietnam War as told through the American wife's point of view, which has not been done yet. So I'm really excited about this. I mean, I don't normally write historical dramas, but I was asked to come aboard. And so that project is taking off as we speak. And I'm really excited. I won't be directing that, but that's fine. I look forward to this journey.
I'm hoping people hear how flexible you are, right? You know who you are. You're okay to say yes or no. You don't feel you have to say yes to something. You look at things, you take the opportunity because you know you can always communicate about it. So who picked up MIA?
Imprint Entertainment optioned it, and they are the company that produced the Twilight films, and they produced the Percy Jackson films, and they are fantastic so far.
That's exciting. Yeah. I'm glad that you said the other films, and so sort of how we have that conversation is how people talk about in a room about whether or not, so they'll take your script and they'll go, okay, what else have we made? Does it fit in what we are, what we do? Is it a right fit? And that sounds like a great marriage. So I'm very, very happy for you and wish you
Thank you.
success. I feel honored that I've gotten to read that script, and it is based on a true story, and it's exciting that you'll be able to have that come to life. So yay for you.
And on another note, in my immediate future, I am in March the featured artist at a gallery. I'm having a solo gallery show of my recent work where I created a whole body of artwork about my father's life and Alzheimer's disease. And so fantastic. I'm really excited putting this art show together. Like I said, I have an artist inside of me and a writer inside of me, and I'm always doing both simultaneously.
From my understanding, one of the photos of your dad, it was beautiful in a boat. I don't know if that was a canoe, but it was a small boat that you could row, made the cover of a magazine.
Yes.
Isn't that? So it's just like you just have to put it out there, right? If you don't put it out there, it can't get picked up.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I feel like creativity is what will save us. Creativity is what will save anyone who's listening to this right now. I know this year has been extremely trying and exhausting and hard and long. And I have every day, I wake up wondering what I can paint today, what I can write today, what I can draw on. Or cook, and I get very creative and excited about it all. And so I hope that whoever is out there listening right now, that they don't lose that creative urge to create, and to make things.
Well, Xaque Gruber, I want to thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your joy, your stories. We want to thank everyone that came in today. We know that someone signed up from Hong Kong and someone signed up from Italy. So we're truly an
international.
The whole world. So thank you. I'm going to end the session, everyone, and go to newmediafilmfestival.com to see some upcoming seminars we have. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan. Bye.